Man, that last video was an utter write-off. My head's not in the YouTube game right now. I'm making music, dude. But I'm here! Do you know what? Whenever I'm done with the album, which is never, I'm gonna be working on that shit for like the next year. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to balance this out, I think. Anyway, yes, welcome back. We're looking at Goth on TikTok. Because, see what's happening. I'm not gonna rant this time, okay? That's nice. That is nice. Where's it from? Hashtag lesbian? What? I will tell you what, man. I think one of my fondest memories growing up as a goth. Yes, Angela, I have been doing this a long time. Stop getting your information about me from Reddit and troll websites, you idiot. But one of my favorite things about growing up goth in the mid to late 2000s and even in some of the early 2010s, I think it was definitely dressing up, man. That was like the most fun part. Young people love doing that shit. There's no shame in that. It doesn't degrade or devalue goth as a subculture. And in fact, is more ingrained in the subculture than some people are even fucking aware of. This is where I can do whatever I want, said the young man. He admitted that it took him 5 hours to prepare for the Batcave's phantasmagoric midweek suspension of workaday doldrums. And yet his look was relatively understated compared to those in line next to him. Some sported close-cropped mohawks dyed omnipresent black. Others boasted a similar coiffure, only grown out, bleached white and sprayed up so that it resembled, deliberately or not, a mushroom cloud. For a splash of color in the otherwise monochromatic crowd, there were occasional flashes of fuchsia bangs and leopard print. A few flaunted their allegiance to the club with membership cards clutched in their hands. The Batcave welcomed all. Wednesday night proved it. Yes, there were women in flowing black dresses that seemed more apropos to a funeral than a dance floor. There were sinuous men in ripped tights and flux of pink Indians shirts, writhing like serpents to the DJ's thunderous rhythms. And there were spiky-haired people of indeterminate gender who glided between or outside them both. Dressing up has been a massive part of gothic subculture forever, actually. It is not the only aspect, but for most people, it is, along with the music, what defines goth. But for me personally, it's what the music is about that defines goth. The music is merely unifying, which is actually in here. Goth is so much more than just the music. It's in a book about goth. Goth, by its very nature, is obsessed with the past, but what about the future? We live in a divided and polarized world right now. However, I have always felt music, especially intense music, to be liberating and unifying force. Goth has a definition different to everybody. The definition of goth is subjective, and I don't think any of them are incorrect. If you get into goth through a political means, fine. Politics aren't goth. So you've obviously found something else there that maybe you're not willing to admit. But some people get into it through the fashion that is inspired by the music. Sometimes the music has less of an impact on the fashion of it. Sometimes the fashion doesn't play any part at all and people are just into the music. But fashion, you can't deny, is a big part of goth as a subculture. It is the visually identifiable factor of goth as a subculture. You see it, you're like, that's goth. In fact, I don't think anything is more immediately and definitely identifiable as goth than the image of it. Since the music is so unbelievably ambiguous, and even to this day, people are still arguing as to the parameters of what goth music even is, and since liberal policies, politically speaking, are different the world round, politically speaking, we can't even agree on what goth politics are even supposed to be. Because goth exists in many different places, as do liberal governments. And in every single country, liberal governments are different. They have different ideologies, different ideals, different priorities. So that's not unifying. However, I think you will find that the image of goth, the aesthetic of goth, is almost always the same. Regardless of what color skin is wearing it, you're like, that's goth, I've seen it before. And the music sounds the same too. There's culturally diverse music that has goth elements and goth vibes and goth topics as its lyrical basis. But the look is kind of always the same. You can play around with the look, but the look is kind of the same. It looks like this, actually, a little bit. So yeah, dressing up, goth fashion, that stuff is important. It's not reductive, and it certainly doesn't devalue goth as a subculture. In fact, I would say it celebrates it. It is a celebration of your youth and representing your subculture.
These are 5 things I do to look naturally alternative on days where I literally cannot be bothered, but I don't want people to think I'm like basic. My hair. So definitely dyeing it black, definitely getting bangs, definitely having layers.
This British girl just said bangs. This English woman just said the word bangs. It's a fringe. Under the rule of the king, it is a fringe.
Nothing done to it. You know, it kind of looks messy. I shaved them all off, almost completely, so that when I draw them back on, they're straight and really thin. I have super thick eyebrows naturally. I'll try insert a photo here. Yeah, I don't always wash off my waterline or my mascara. So I kind of just have this like natural smudge most days. Building your wardrobe to look alternative is definitely a big thing. Having already distressed clothes like these, like it's all ripped. It's also kind of aged looking. It's a shirt I got from a concert the other night. So I definitely cater buying things to fit the look so that I can just throw things on most days and it kind of looks together. If you can afford them, 100% tattoos. I have these ones here. I also have some up the back of my legs. I have a small one on the back of my arm.
Now, this is an interesting topic. I've spoken about something like, or at least I've thought about this kind of stuff before. So you can almost always tell when someone isn't really committed, or maybe even is just new to a subculture, or maybe they don't have the personal freedom to really fully indulge in committing to that alternative look that is year-round. Regardless of, you know, makeup or clothes, it's there. Someone can put on the goth makeup and blah, 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 but, like, they're completely void of tattoos, you know? Or maybe they're just wearing one big statement piece and everything else is just, like, a pair of jeans and work boots or something like that. This is obviously all fine. But it's interesting because this is actually an interest of mine. This has been an active pursuit in my life. I didn't want to only look alternative whenever I was wearing the clothes and the makeup. I always want to look alternative, so I will still have, even on my casual days, I will still have clothes that kind of a little bit on the edgy side, and then failing that, I will still have full tattoos on show, even on my face and on the side of my head here. You know, I live my life committed to the alternative look, at the detriment to some of the opportunities I could have had I not tattooed my head and my face and my neck. And my hands, okay? I'm committed to this shit. Again, nail varnish, that stuff's just on there. You can put on like a white shirt and a pair of blue jeans, but you've still got your nails black and your visible tattoos. Same with the waterline that she was talking about. I do that as well. I remove all my makeup, but then because I'm constantly wearing heavy black or thick eye makeup, I'll remove as much as I possibly can, but then there's always like a little bit of a smudge, a little bit of black smudge, a little bit smokiness. Almost always in my eyes. And these things do contribute to like a constantly identifiably alternative and unique look. Now, not everyone has to do this. Not everyone can do this, right? Which is why it's not a requirement. Not everyone can do this. But for me personally, it's interesting this came up because this is what I did. I always wanted to be perceived as alternative regardless of what I was wearing, because this shit is in me. It's in my soul. Which is one of the reasons why I actually did struggle a little bit with letting go of being a teenager, letting go of being no longer the relevant primary focus of society. I wasn't like the youth anymore. I was no longer the teenager that was kicking all through the night, you know? Movies and TV shows and songs were no longer about me, for me, made for me, representing me, and that stuff kind of sucked. I very closely associated with being a teenager, with being unique, with being alternative, with being a goth, with being the representation of youth rebellion at the time. So watching yourself be replaced by the next wave who do things differently that you don't agree with or you think is dumb, and then being told that you need to grow up and move on and you don't get to do this anymore, that shit sucks. That was definitely tough for me to deal with. I definitely deal with it now. I've now redefined it. I no longer feel like I need youth in order to have the justification to express myself the way that I do. I'm allowed to do this whenever. The undeniable goth aesthetic, man. Undeniable. And you can't just be like, oh, well, that's gothic. It's not the same as goth. Just stop being retarded, please. Ooh, wedding inspiration, man. Wow, that is beautiful. Wow. This better not be fucking AI, I swear. So I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get a look at the text. Text is usually like a big giveaway. I don't know if this is AI. If it is, I denounce this, okay? This is repulsive. However, it brings into light the things I've been talking about here, where goth aesthetic is one of the most recognizable definitions of the subculture, right? You can't look at that and just be like, what? It looks completely normal to me. Unless there's music playing, I can't decide if this is goth or not. Like, this is ridiculous. You see stuff like that, you're like, whoa, goth is shit. You're not just gonna look at it and just be like, yeah, I just see like beige. I just see beige and static. I can't define what I'm looking at or ascertain the thing that I'm looking at until there is music to help me define it. Anyway, moral of the story, the music is ambiguous. The image, not so much. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.